All right, Chris Peaks back here tonight, my man, Chris Pahakis, to talk a little college football, analyze this weekend. Man, we got a lot to talk about, don't we?
Yeah, we missed a couple, didn't we?
Uh, but not only we missed a couple bad.
Uh, what do you want to start with? You want to do Kentucky, Georgia?
Man, yeah, I was surprised. You know, I wasn't. I'm not really saying I was 100% surprised Georgia beat them. With it being at home, but
Yeah. Oh,
I
they
don't.
they just didn't even look like they belonged on the field with them, to be honest
I
with you.
don't. I don't
I
know if
mean,
it could be. I don't know if they had some injuries. You have to go back and look at that. I don't know.
mhm.
It could be one of those things that uh, I don't
Well,
know. They weren't
I,
prepared to play.
I will say this. I'm slightly guilty of having not watched a Kentucky game this year. And I was kind of going on their performance against Florida. And I was also kind of going on Florida's performance against Tennessee.
And
And
I
and
and I was
so
kind of doing that too. And I was kind
yeah.
of going on what they had been building over the last few years. I thought they were finally had reached a level where they were to play with
And
Georgia. Obviously,
and
I
I
was wrong.
and I'll be honest, upstart show, we need to do something to get some attention on us. Hey, if we had have been right about that when we were the only ones that were saying it,
I mean, do
that
you
would have
think it
been a
was
home run.
a thing that they got down quick and just kind of quit, or
No, I just think they're not there yet. I think they lose 3 or 4 games this year.
yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, I think they
Um,
lose to Alabama and Tennessee. Um, that might be all, but I don't recall who all they have left to play. But I mean, they got to play Tennessee. They got to play Missouri, who looked
I
rather good against LSU.
I
Um,
think they have to play. Now, I may be 100. I may be
mhm,
wrong on this, but I think that Texas, no, Mississippi State's their team, one of their teams
mhm,
from the West. I can't remember
yeah,
who the other one is.
Alabama.
Yeah, that's right. Why am I?
Yeah,
I was sitting
yeah.
here saying it this whole time. Yeah. So that's
Mhm.
State now the way that I look at it, they could probably go either way with Kentucky. I just they just don't have the horses yet.
Uh,
Every year I keep thinking they're going to have them. Um,
yeah.
man, that Texas, what I mean,
I really thought they were going to close it out there in the end because they came back, got in the game, but
but they got
I
down
mean,
so bad. What was it?
I think they were
I
down 10 at one point.
Okay, I was thinking it was
Um,
more than that, but
yeah. I also think they might have been up 10 at one point. I can't remember. I didn't really get a chance to watch a whole lot of that game. But I did catch most of the second half. Uh, I mean, and it was at home. It wasn't a good look for Texas, and Oklahoma just came in and didn't get intimidated by them, and just came in and outplayed them
especially
from the
since
start.
Was supposed to make the move this year, um, you know, to be an elite national championship team. Um, you just
But
can't.
I think they could be. Maybe Oklahoma's a lot
Yeah,
better than people gave them credit for, including us. I don't know.
I mean, yeah, that could. I
I mean,
mean,
the scenario set up. I mean, I don't really see a challenge to either one of them on the schedule. So, I mean, they can play each other in the Big 12 championship. And then if Texas wins that one, then they've got a split. And it'll be interesting to see what happens.
I want to jump into a game real quick and
Uh,
just more talk about the team.
mhm.
Um, how disheartening does it have to be for Arkansas to be in every game just about it and be so and not win any of them? I mean, is it become a mental thing or?
I don't know. I mean, they never go away. I feel like the staying in the game's a moral
I mean,
victory for them.
I mean, but look, I'm worried to death about playing them this week.
I mean,
That's a physical team.
you do wonder, are they going to get tired of
I mean,
losing and finally get it together? But I mean, they just,
it's a physical team. You know, they're going to throw everything they got at Alabama. Um, uh, you know,
I feel like we beat them last year with Milrow coming off the bench, um, and a weaker defense.
I mean,
So I kind of feel like we'll be fine, but
what do you
I
think
mean,
the mindset of that?
it's,
What's the mindset of that mentality? I mean, he's in his third year of building this team. He's obviously got the players to compete with the other teams in the SEC. I mean, because he's in every game, but they just can't win any of them.
I mean, I mean, right now it's not a destination for 5-star players. It's not a destination for 4-star players. There's just too much competition. I mean,
I
you
agree,
know,
but I mean, if you look at the games that they're playing, I mean, and they're in every one, he's obviously got some talent.
yeah, I mean, it's enough to be in the game, but not enough to win them. I mean,
So you're thinking he's missing that one player or that two players
I
to
mean, I really don't know because between all the games that I do watch, I really hadn't had a chance to really watch Arkansas in any kind of detail this year. Obviously, I will this weekend, but to analyze it like that. But I mean, they're definitely not a team to just be like, okay, we've lost and let them run the score up on them.
I mean, I think in
But
this SEC so far, they've lost. LSU beat them 34-31. A&M
uh,
beat them 34-22. Ole Miss beat them 27-20. I mean, that's going to be gut wrenching. And I think
yeah,
Arkansas.
have
I
they
mean,
played
and
Auburn? They haven't played Auburn yet, have they?
no, and you know,
I
you
think
think about
Arkansas will win that game.
through the history since they've been in the SEC, they've proven that they can compete. They've been to 3 SEC West titles.
Yeah, but kind of like remember one year, gosh, back in the mid-90s, there was a lot of talk about whether or not the Jets, there was they were taking a look at the Jets, this one NFL Films presents that I watched. They were 3-13 the previous year. They're like 7 of their games were decided by less than 7 points. So the argument was, well, how bad were they really? Because these were good teams that were beating them by less than a touchdown. That was 7 games. So 7 games they were in, if they had won all 7 of them, then they would have been 10-6 and probably had a playoff spot. But that's not the way it happened. They were 3-13 and in last place. And really and truly being in games is good. It's better than getting blown out, but still not. It still means nothing at the end. And I will say this: that Arkansas is one of those teams that's in position to not necessarily um, need to win 8 or 9 games to have a successful season. Looking at it now, okay, their record is, let's see, okay, they won 2, 3. Oh no, see, they lost to BYU. That would have been a
Yeah,
good victory for them. So they're 2-4, and they've lost 4 in a row. But hopefully they don't decide to break out the upset this week. But let's say they drop to Alabama. They got Mississippi State next. I think that's winnable. We got Florida next. I think that's winnable. They got Auburn after that, winnable, and then Florida International, whatever. That's a win, and then Missouri. That's winnable. So, I mean, they've got an opportunity to finish the season 7-5. I think that would be a good season. They'd probably be bowl eligible.
I think it'd be something to build on.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, if they could do that, that's something definitely to build on.
Hmm.
Because let's face it, man, it's going to be hard to get. How are you going to go get a top five, a 5-star or a 4-star? How are you going to convince them to come to Fayetteville, Arkansas?
I mean, when they're competing with Alabama, Auburn, LSU, you could say that they're competing with Missouri for the regional players. They're right in that same ballpark.
A&M.
A&M. I mean, I don't know. I mean, they're unfortunately stuck with players like what's that quarterback's name for Arkansas? Um,
Oh, I can't think of his name.
okay, well, he seems like a decent player, but could you see him starting at any of the schools we just named?
No,
And
no. And
so,
the thing about it is, it's got to be frustrating for Arkansas fans. If you look at it, and you know the history of football, Arkansas
mm,
has a proud football tradition. I mean, they've got
mhm,
a national championship. They won a lot of Southwestern Conference championships. They've, they have a proud tradition.
mhm,
This is a school that wants to win.
mhm. And they had a real solid win. Oh, what was the year? What was the last year they were in the SEC championship?
That was
Um,
2007,
seven, yeah,
2006.
that's right, 6 or 7, yeah.
They had, I mean, that team right there, that was a good team.
Hmm. I mean, yeah, Darren McFadden, who went on to a good NFL career.
And Felix Jones.
Felix Jones, great, well, great couple of years in the NFL. I mean, you had some really good players, really, really good players. But I mean, I think the season was 1 in a million. I mean, and that was at a time when Alabama was down, LSU
Yeah,
wasn't at their best.
I think had
Um,
Petrino not got
Auburn,
into all that mess,
was
he could have built
mediocre.
them into a team that could compete. I'm not saying he would have been year in year out,
Hmm.
in the hunt for it, but I think Petrino could
So
have
what do you think is the ceiling for him there? You think what, a 9-3 season, eight and
Jimbo.
four? No, this current
I
coach.
don't I don't think Pittman's really on the hot seat right now.
No, no, I'm saying, what do you think is a good, you know, what's a good ceiling for him there? I mean, do you
Like
think it's a championship, or do you think it's going 9-3 and being the runner up in the SEC at West? I mean, what do you
I
think?
really in this day and time, I couldn't see them. Let's say he goes coaches there 6 years and he's averaging 8-4. Now, I couldn't see them firing him over that.
Hmm.
But at the same time, in this day and time, everything has been compared to what Saban
Yeah,
and now
but
what
but
Smart has
what I'm
done.
what I'm asking you though is what would be viewed as a success for him there?
Oh, I think if he finished if he had a 9-3 season, I think they'd be
Hmm.
very successful, especially over the
Hmm.
last few years. I mean, how long has it been since Arkansas's had a team that won 9 or 10 games?
Probably
It's been a while.
'06. I mean, they haven't beaten Alabama since what,
Saban's
'06?
first year,
Yeah,
or did
seven,
they?
'07.
I can't remember
I
if they
don't
beat him his
even know
first
that
year
they
or not.
won '07. I have to
I
look
don't
at
know if they
that,
did
but
either. I mean, it's been 16, 17
um,
years.
it can, and I mean, I don't know. I think they've squeaked out a few over LSU over the years, but
They've
I
won a couple
mean,
against Auburn.
won a couple against Auburn.
I mean, and let's face it, you can't. It's unfair, in my opinion, to fire a coach based on whether they beat Alabama or not, because very few have. I mean,
hmm
I thought that's funny when they was asking Sarkisian about Saban's record
hmm
against former assistants. They said, well, "What about the rest of the, the
Yeah.
rest of the coaches?"
How's his record against everybody else? Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't really ever see them being, I mean, right now, especially with Texas and Oklahoma coming in the SEC, I don't see them with any,
It's making it that much worse
yeah,
for them. Hey,
yeah,
let's
it's
jump
going to
on to
get worse.
something else
Mm.
that I didn't I meant to cover a little bit more while ago. Is is Georgia to me Georgia just isn't the Georgia of the past 2 years. Maybe I'm wrong, and they'll put it together. I know they got a good team,
hmm
but I just don't
I
see that
agree, but I think they did look a lot better this past week, this
they
past
did.
weekend. Yeah.
But I don't see that just
Mm-mm.
overwhelming dominance. I mean, just
Their defense is not. I would say that their defense compared to the last 2 years' defense is like if the last year's defense was a 10, I'd say they're sitting on about a 6.5 or a 7 right now, and that might even be a little generous. I mean, they just lost so much over the last couple of years. So many starters. I mean,
yeah, you
same thing
can't.
with Alabama. I mean, they've lost so many starters, and they've got so many young guys in there. I mean, it's a work in progress. They're not going to look like the well-oiled Georgia machine till potentially, conference championship time. Which, I was looking over their remaining schedule, and I feel like they've got a pretty decent little waltz into the conference championship from here on out. I believe they got a game against Ole Miss, but I don't think
Georgia plays Ole Miss.
I believe so. I might be mistaken. I was looking over
Oh,
that
that
the other
that
day.
that could be a
Yeah, let's see.
that could be a tough game.
All right, they got Vanderbilt next, Florida, Missouri, Ole Miss.
Missouri
Yep.
could give them some trouble.
We got but the Ole Miss and Tennessee back to back. So I mean, they got
That's Ole
that's
Miss is
a.
not going to be a pushover for them. I
Mm-mm.
mean,
I mean,
they.
Florida is on the road. Um,
Uh,
Missouri's a home game. Ole Miss is home, and Tennessee's on the road.
um, I mean, that's a tough little stretch to me. I mean, it's tough as
hmm
far as the East goes, as tough as it can be. It's throwing with Ole Miss in there because that's
But
Ole Miss is not going to be just. They're not going to lay down.
yeah, I think even if they drop one, I think they're still in.
Oh yeah.
Though,
Um, you mentioned Missouri a while ago, and that brought me to question. LSU to me is not that great. Um,
yeah.
I could see them. I mean, they're a few plays away from having several losses. Um,
hmm
let's say they finish. Let's say they drop some more this year and finish, with four losses. Um, could next year be a? I mean, I know we just won an SEC championship, but I never thought Brian Kelly was a good fit for LSU.
No, I think if he has
Could
a
that
bad year, like
could he could that be a hot seat year next year for him?
I think he could be in the hot seat right now, honestly, because I think their expectations are high. I mean, they've got Auburn at home this week, then Army, then Alabama in Bryant Denny, then Florida at home, and A&M at home. If he
Mm.
drops two of those and they end up 8-4,
I just don't know if they would fire him a year after an SEC championship appearance.
but I think that was such a fluke last year. I
Well,
mean,
I mean, don't disagree. And they've still, I think
Yeah,
they
I mean,
finished at 9 and
Alabama had
5, or
they were completely discombobulated last year.
and I
And
think his record was 9 and 5 overall for the season, wasn't it?
wait, say that again?
I thought their record was 9 and
Oh
5
yeah, because they
overall.
lost their bowl game too, didn't they?
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
I never thought when they said, when I announced they hired Brian Kelly, I was shocked because I just did not see that as a good fit at LSU. I mean,
I still
you've
say
got,
they never should have let Les Miles go.
I agree with you 100% there, man. I thought that was stupid.
Because I can see them dropping even three of these. I think Alabama's got their number this year. I
Oh yeah,
think Auburn's probably going to give them a little bit of trouble, but I think they'll pull it out over Auburn. But Auburn could upset them. And
They
then,
make it be. I'm not. I think
I
Auburn can
mean,
win that game.
A&M in Florida, I could see them dropping three of these. Because I'll be honest, I was watching. I know we're not ready to move to the Alabama game just yet, but watching them, are you not going to tell me that A&M at 4-1 was criminally underrated, not being ranked in the top 25?
Oh, they should have been ranked
Yeah,
in the
I mean,
top
because you're
25.
going to tell me that two-loss LSU, Missouri, Duke, North Carolina, Utah, all those teams that are in the top 25, you're going to put above them? I don't think so. I think they're way better than their ranking was. I mean, I'm convinced that outside of the top 4 or 5, that the rankings are just throw somebody somewhere. I mean, they don't make any sense. But
You tell me if I'm wrong. You could play that game, Alabama, Texas A&M. You could play it 10 times, and A&M might win 4 of them.
well, are we moving on to that game? Because I do have a
Well,
lot
no,
to
no, no,
say
let's not.
about that game.
We'll say, yeah, we'll say that. But
Yeah.
what I'm saying is, A&M is a better that A&M is better than a 4-2 team in my opinion.
Mhm.
I mean, that's a team that I could see finishing 10-2.
Mhm. I mean, they
Um,
really shouldn't have lost that game to Miami in the opener. Alabama should have been their first loss. But I mean, Miami was undefeated and honestly should be undefeated still. That's one that we could talk about. That was not a game on my radar. And just because the Kentucky Georgia game was such a bust, I needed to find a game to watch and I put it on Miami, Georgia Tech for a minute and I'm watching. And it looked like for a minute Georgia Tech was going to come back and beat them. And then Miami fumbled and then gave up the big touchdown to drop the game. I'm like, man, that is, I mean, and I was frustrated with the clock mismanagement in the Alabama game, um, but that's even worse. It's like somebody talk to your running back and say, "Hey, we're just running the clock out. You don't need to fight for that extra yard and a half. We don't need the yard and a half. As a matter of fact, we don't need any yards. We just need you to get the ball and fall on it." I mean,
yeah, there should have been some coaching up right there before that play
mhm,
because naturally in instincts, a kid's instinct's going to be to keep fighting for that yard. I mean, it's just,
mhm.
yeah. I mean, is there anybody in the Big Ten that you see that's a legitimate national championship contender?
No. I mean, I'm not seeing it yet. I haven't seen much from Michigan. Um, I haven't, Ohio State. I mean, Maryland hung in with them till about the fourth quarter, and then they kind of pulled away. But
Yeah, you
I
said you thought that
mean,
would be a tough game for them.
yeah, I thought that Maryland would kind of hang, but I thought that they would pull away sooner than they did. I thought it would be more like late second quarter, early third quarter, they'd start running away with it a little bit and take it by, I don't know, 13, 17, something like that. 13, 17 points. But I mean, I think it was still tied at the start of the fourth quarter. I mean, that was impressive. I didn't realize, but Mike Loxley, who was the offensive coordinator at Alabama, he's the head coach over there, so,
Yeah.
and then of course you had little Tua was there, and I was rooting them on, hoping they did some good, but they just finally got to where they Ohio State was a little too much for them. But I was looking at the stats. I mean, 196 yards and 2 interceptions for Talia, and it's like, I mean, you got to put up better numbers than that if you want to win a big game. I mean, you got to be up in the closer to 300 yards, and you can't throw 2 picks in a big game and hope to win. So,
Um,
how about Notre Dame? I caught that one late too, and it was also a game that was not on my radar. But one thing I got from watching I think I watched most of the second half. It wasn't one of those flukes where, the other team comes up with this great play and, wins, upsets, the better team.
right.
Louisville dominated that game from start to
Start.
finish.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like they outplayed them from start to finish. And I don't know if Notre Dame and the teams they've played so far are just overrated or what, but or maybe Notre Dame's just not used to playing this many big games in a year. I mean, I think
Well,
that if you ask most
sometimes
other
if you look at Notre Dame's schedule, they'll have what looks like big names,
uh-huh,
but they
they're
suck.
not, yeah. I mean, and
It's
but
kind of like those years.
truthfully,
You
would
remember those years
you
when Alabama
would,
started off the season in those kickoffs, and we would catch like West Virginia, Virginia Tech, Michigan,
yeah.
Miami, and they all say Southern Cal, big
Mhm.
name, but they all sucked.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I don't know. Okay, so Ohio State. Okay, there you go. That's a top team. But then you look at the other big games Notre Dame has played this year. Duke and Louisville. What other team is gonna look at that and say Duke and Louisville? Poor baby. I mean, it's not exactly, top 10 teams. So I don't know. I always think Notre Dame's overrated. Um, I don't know if they managed to string together a heck of a game against Ohio State or if Ohio State's overrated. I
Well,
mean,
what's the deal? Because I mean, when Holtz was there, that
mhm,
team, they recruited and I mean, they was in the national championship hunt every year. And then when he left, they went down. I mean, they've never been the same. I mean, did they change recruiting standards or or something?
I mean, it's always challenging for a team with high academic standards to get the good athletes. Um, and Notre Dame does they're not Ivy League requirements, but they're definitely a big step above your standard state schools like
And
your Alabamas, your Auburns, your Tennessees and stuff like that.
they
Even
have
Penn
some
State, yeah.
kind of stupid rule on there that you have to be all state for 2 years in a row to get a scholarship.
And that's probably killing them.
I mean, how many? Yeah, because how many players can do that?
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Mm-hmm.
and it's for fun. For a while, it was fun because as much as I hated Notre Dame, but
Mm-hmm.
now it's just like I wish Notre Dame was back. So
But you're also trusting now the all state voters for all these states. What I mean, what do they know? I mean, uh, I played football with Tyler Watts in high school, and he made all state his sophomore year, didn't his junior year or his senior year. And the guys who did that year never played a down of football after high school.
Yeah.
Tyler did. I mean, so who's to say that those who select all state, now I don't know how the different states do it. I mean, I assume that there's a voter, a voter system, but who's to say that they have a clue what they're talking about? And you're putting that in their hands, I mean, you don't think there's a political edge there? I mean, the guy who
Oh, for
won all
sure.
state Tyler's junior year is a guy named Malin Kent. He was from Mountain Brook. I mean, I think I would choose somebody from Mountain Brook every year I could. That'll ensure your donations to stay steady. Um, but
I remember Bobby Bowden wanted him so bad.
yeah, but I think that's a silly rule. But one thing is schools like Notre Dame and Northwestern, I think maybe Penn State too, are not just apply, send in your transcript, and if it looks good enough, you're in schools. They require written essays with their submissions, and um, you know, so I mean it's a high academic school, and so I mean it's like if you do have the required GPA and everything else, then they'll look at you and they're gonna look at that essay. And if you got the good looking GPA, but your essay kind of makes they can tell you're an idiot, in your essay, then you ain't getting in. So I mean, their academic standards are just much higher than any other. I guarantee it's much higher than any other top 10 football school.
What do you say out of the Pac 10, 12? Do you see anybody that can it's the national championship team?
I mean, not really. I mean, I think I see somebody who's gonna. I mean, surely they're gonna get beat if they make it to the playoffs, which unfortunately I think at least Oregon will. Um, but yeah, I do think once they actually play outside of the Pac-12, they're gonna get crushed. I think Oklahoma or Texas, both of those teams would crush Oregon. I think that because here's the thing, the Pac-12 is built around the style points. They don't have aggressive linemen. They don't have any kind of pass rush, and the quarterbacks have always been able to just kind of stand back there and fling the ball down the field all they want. Now, if you get Bo Nix back up against an SEC defense, Alabama or Georgia, if you get him up against a team like Texas or Oklahoma that both had outstanding pass rushes, and he's got pressure in his face on every snap, I promise you he barely throws over 100 yards.
Let me tell you something. That
Mm-hmm.
was Malzahn's downfall
Mm-hmm.
because when with Daddy being legacy or whatever he was,
Mm-hmm.
he quit. He came down there and got a job somewhere close to Auburn coaching, and they said he was at every practice. And they had another player on that team, um, huge kid that could run the ball. I mean, just a monster. Malzahn played him a few series early on and never put him back in the game in the season because he was so scared to pull Patrick Nix over his father.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe had he played that guy, they would have won some more games. That was his downfall playing Knicks, and
Yeah.
he was intimidated by him.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, I think they're going to waltz in unless one of, so I mean, that's always been the thing to save us from the Pac-12 is they get upset by somebody that they should have never been beaten by. Stanford's come in and beat Oregon several times. Washington State. One of them always gets them. Hopefully one of them gets them this year, so we don't have to waste a playoff game on
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and say it.
them. Okay.
Alabama's the best team in the nation.
You think so?
I think so. I think they're the best team in the nation.
I'm not ready to go there yet. And let me tell you why.
Uh,
We're still playing extremely undisciplined.
that's true.
We have 2 games in a row now without a fourth quarter touchdown. The Mississippi State game, we didn't have a touchdown in the entire second half. And in this last game, we had 0 fourth quarter points. So that'll lose you some games. That'll lose you some games in a hurry.
Good. Those are good points.
And that has been a concern of mine. That goes back to, I think that we have an offense that for some reason is not effective in the first quarter and is not effective late in the game. They're best in the second and third quarter. And I don't know why that is, because in the past, that's been one of the things that set Alabama apart is they would go into the fourth quarter, we do the thing and we go into the fourth quarter and everybody's excited. And a game that was close at the start of the fourth quarter, you win by 17, 20 points. And, I think this is 2 games in a row that we could have easily hung 40 points on the other team. Because if and I mean, in the fourth quarter of this game, it wasn't just the not scoring touchdowns. It was not getting points at all. We end up winning by 6, which, if I remember correctly, I did say we win less than a touchdown. And
Yeah, you called that.
But had they just gotten 2 field goals, then the game's out of reach. Yeah, Dallas Turner, probably the best defensive player, makes the dumbest penalty I've ever seen. I mean, it was entirely unnecessary. 15, 20 yards behind the play. No sense whatsoever. And cost a defensive touchdown. Jalen Milroe, when all we had to do was run the clock out, for some odd reason, throws a pass. And, I'm lost on the thought process because one thing that's been a critique of mine over Saban, because, even though Saban's not calling the offensive plays, he's calling the shots, he's giving marching orders. I feel like over the last 2 or 3 years, he goes conservative way too quick. So if there's 10 minutes or less in the fourth quarter, and we have any kind of lead, 1 point, 2 points, 3 points, any kind of lead, he goes conservative and starts running the ball up the middle, acting like we're going to run the clock out. Well, I think he's forgotten we don't have the dominant front and the dominant back that we used to have. Now, you could do that with Derrick Henry, but I don't think we've got the team that can do that right now. And I'm not saying throw the ball in that situation necessarily, because you do want to work clock, but let's come up with something a little more creative than the halfback draw right up the middle. Let's at least go around the outside or and they started doing that a little that last possession where they did a toss and they actually got a first down, which so I was getting frustrated that all they were doing was running it up the middle, but then they get that first down, all they got to do is run the clock out and they throw the ball. I'm like, now's when you run it up the middle. you know I'm like, I was dumbfounded as to that decision. And I don't know if Milroe called the play or if the offensive coordinator called the play, but somebody tell me why they were doing that when you had a minute 40 on the clock and the other team had no timeouts. Why you're throwing the damn ball? It's these decisions that make me say, no, they're not quite there yet. It's clock mismanagement, untimely penalties, taking points off the board, and just overall discipline issues that just has me saying no. I think we're not quite there yet. I feel like we can be. I mean, there's a few things that need to come together. I mean, there's definitely great improvements, but we still don't have much of a short game. You got Burton, who's clearly a great player, but man, that guy belongs at Auburn with that attitude. I mean, I could tell early in the game he was getting a little feisty with the DB, and I said, "Watch, he's going to have a personal foul by the end of this game." Lo and behold, he gets one. Not only and he fumbles the ball, and it's like, man, somebody get a hold of this guy, and get him his attitude adjustment, 'cause he's a great player. I mean, he could be somebody who's as good as like maybe not as good as an Amari Cooper, but in that conversation, if he could just get his head on straight. And so I mean, because of all those things, I'm not ready to call them the best team in the nation. But I do think they could be.
Fair enough. I can just feel this team each week though coming together,
Yeah.
and I don't know. I just
We
feel
we gotta get a short game going. I mean, because when you can throw a deep ball, you can spread out that defense really well and turn a 7-yard slant into a 30, 40-yard gain. Tua did it all the time.
I don't know if we
Jalen
got the
Hurts did it
receivers
all the
to
time.
do that.
Huh?
I don't know if we got the receivers to do that though.
Maybe not like they had, but I mean, you mean to tell me if you hit Burton on a 7-yard slant and he's got a wide open field, he's not going to gain at least 20, 30 yards?
Fair enough.
I mean, Bond, I mean, he's not quite as explosive as, the guys in the past, the Judys, and can't remember the other guy's name. But he is I mean, he's definitely Black. You mean to tell me if he hits Black on a slant, he's not going to gain 20, 30 yards? I mean, I think all three of those guys have that ability, but right now we just don't have. Milroe is just he's slow. I mean, I think he's really slow in his read and progression. He's got to speed up and be able to get the ball quick. But I mean, part of that is, we still don't have a center that can snap the ball. I mean,
Oh man, that's putting us. Yeah.
two snap infraction penalties. Now, you can blame it on the noise. These last two games, he was in very notoriously noisy stadiums. I would take that excuse if he hadn't had the same penalties in every game this year. So I don't think, I mean, a snap infraction, there's no excuse for a snap infraction. Bro, you're the center. If anybody doesn't get off sides, then it shouldn't be the center. I mean, come on. I mean, and then his snaps are not great, I mean, I also think that Milrow's not fielding them real clean. That's one reason he's very slow in progressing to his reads, is that he's, trying to secure the ball. He doesn't have great hands. And I mean, part of that might be because he's just nervous because the snaps have been high, they've been low, they've been, whatever. I'm like, man, put him under center. I don't care. If they can't snap the ball that way, put him under center. Um, but he's gotta, if he can get to where he's a little quicker with his hands and getting the ball out and can start hitting some slant routes, some out routes, and getting these, 9 to 10 yard gains. I mean, that opens up the deep ball. The deep ball opens up those. They both open up the run game, but we're so one dimensional in the passing that, you know, you got your secondary playing the deep ball, you got your front seven playing the run. I mean, we can't, you've got to be 3 dimensional in something like that. You can't be two. I mean, with a good deep ball and a good run game, I mean, you just allow the defense to neutralize you in both of them. Not to mention that if the D line is rushing like it's a run, well, they're already in the backfield. So that's probably one reason that we got a bunch of sacks. I think we're leading the league in sacks allowed, leading the NCAA. If not, we may not be now, but we were the week before.
I didn't realize that.
There, at one point in time, we were number one in the entire nation in sacks allowed. After, I mean, well, Texas and UCF, we gave up 6 each game.
Yeah, that's
Not
true.
UCF, USF. But man, one team that we didn't talk about is Colorado, and I got something to say about that one.
Okay.
So Deion Sanders tried to save face as always and talk about, oh man, the team just wasn't playing, whatever. I mean, that's his excuse every game. Oh man, we weren't on our game today. He's always got that excuse. Well, let's look over this resume. They narrowly beat Colorado State. They lose to Oregon.
Right.
They lose to USC. Then they go in and just barely beat a 1-4 team at Arizona State. I just think that's the caliber of team they are. I think that's exactly who they are. They're a team who's going to narrowly beat Colorado State. They're a team that's going to get blown out by Oregon, have maybe a competitive game with USC, but lose, and then have a competitive game, but win against Arizona State, another weak team. I just think that's the caliber of team they are. It's not that they don't have it today, or I mean, apparently there's 4 weekends in a row they hadn't had it.
Well, let me say
And
this.
Hmm.
You know, if they even if they end up 6-6,
Hmm.
this is still going to be a huge, huge boost for this program. Not only for what just turning around to 6 wins, but the amount of money that they brought in and the foundation that they set.
Hmm. That part I'll get along with, but the turnaround argument, I heard a counter argument to it recently that makes a lot of sense to me. He didn't really turn anything around. He got rid of everybody and brought in new people. So this isn't the same team that only won one game last year. This
That's
is
true.
this is
That's true.
these are players from teams that were 10-2 last year. This is not the 1-11 Colorado team. Um, but bringing the attention to the program, it's just you know, sometimes that too much attention is not a good thing. Like when they played Colorado State and they had all these celebrities, they had these rappers that were on the sidelines. They had The Rock. The Rock was on the sideline of a Colorado State game. What? I mean, I get
Yeah,
it. I get it that Texas has their fair share of celebrities, but they feature them on the sideline against Alabama, against Oklahoma. But you got The Rock, who didn't even go to Colorado, by the way, went to Miami. Um, but you've got him on the sideline of a Colorado State game. I mean, it's just too much, man. It's like make them prove themselves. And I feel sorry for the kids because I'm sure there's a lot of talent there. And uh, that kind of hype train is never good for anybody. And
well, let me tell you something else that may hurt too. Is he's built up so much hype that they're expecting to win a national championship. He may not ever be able to live up to what he's
well,
built.
last time I posed the question, does he stay after his sons leave? Um, what are the chances? I don't know what year his son is. I don't know what the quarterback. I don't know what year he is. But I mean, he's already played. Hadn't he already played 2 years of college football? So would this be his third year?
I'm not sure.
Okay. Well, okay. Let's say he has 2 more years. Let's just say, for argument's sake, he's a sophomore. He's got 2 more years. Do you think he gets that done in those 2 years?
A national championship?
Yeah.
No.
No. Okay. Do you see him recruiting a 5-star quarterback after his son?
Yes.
You do.
Yes.
Okay. Because I don't. I still lean on that, you know, every time in all of his press conferences, it's Shadur this, Shadur that, and um,
Now, I did pick up on something you said the other day. He said something about coaching for his sons,
uh-huh.
and I thought that was wow.
Yeah, I mean that's what I think it's about. I think it's about his kids. I don't think it's really about even him, you know. Um, and I think he may think that he's going to have this long career at Colorado, but I think he loses interest as soon as his kids graduate. I mean,
I mean,
I
you could
just,
be right on that.
I mean, they're doing commercials. Oh my gosh, he's got 3 sons on there. I
Does
just
he?
looked it up. Yeah, he's got 3. Let's see. I didn't realize he had 3. I thought he only had 2. Oh wait. Shiloh Sanders plays safety for the Bears. Shador Sanders is starting. So let me. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. That's a daughter, and she's on the women's basketball team at Colorado. Hmm.
Interesting.
Yeah. Well, he's got a 4th. If he's younger, maybe he'd stay there to get the 4th one through Colorado.
So right now, who do you think? Alabama and Georgia and Atlanta?
Yeah, I think so. I think Alabama's got the West. It's too early to say what that game would turn into. Now here's one thing to think about. Texas A&M only has 1 conference loss. So if Alabama does something crazy like drops a game to Tennessee or to Arkansas, then may do another crazy stunt, which I don't think this will happen, and maybe they lose to Auburn. It is in Auburn, and Auburn has that tendency to be annoying. Then A&M's in if they win out. But as we were looking over their schedule, they've got some games left that they got to win. But no, I mean LSU still only has 1 conference loss. There's a lot of things that could happen, but I do feel pretty comfortable with Alabama taking the West. And we'll see what happens between now and then.
All right.
I will
I
give
guess
you a little tidbit. I found out today that I have to have surgery on my tricep.
yeah.
So, and that's going to occur next Thursday.
Okay.
So, I would definitely recommend to everybody they tune in that Friday because I'll be nice and lit. That should be a fun prediction show.
All right. Well, let's cut this off now and let's talk for a second off camera.
All right.
And stop recording.